Links to our channel here over at SubScribeStar. So, your government is using your taxes to push the stupidest things imaginable, and this is just one tiny little piece of the stupidity. Here, it's this Gamergate narrative, diversity, inclusion, feminism, gay, trans, whatever. Mostly a bunch of anti-white, racist hatred and misandry, to the extent that really anything men do, especially men of European descent, they will try to destroy. They want to make sure their political commissars are in every group. They have their tentacles in was that movie Better Off Dead? In kind of everything to try to control stuff as much as possible, because they don't want people getting dangerous ideas like founding father type of ideas. So anyway, this USAID thing is huge, and USAID is huge and should make you feel sick when you see how far the corruption goes. But let's take one tiny little piece of it, which is kind of fun. The Gamergate, which takes us back over 10 years to the days of blue-haired slut walks and the filthy whores Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian, back to the days of Wizard Magazine, and back when YouTube was fun with all the anti-SJW channels, which YouTube, i.e. Google, kicked off, which tells you how important a narrative is and how important it is to counter that narrative. They kicked those channels off, which means they must have been doing something good. Well, they were. They were showcasing what these left-wingers were like. And you go, oh, these are just incompetent idiots. We can't have people see this, otherwise it'll move them to the right. It's like, yeah, that's why they got control of YouTube. And honestly, the censorship on YouTube is a good thing because it pushed people to Odyssey, Rumble, and a bunch of other sites. So where there are no political commissars on these alt sites. So what happened is you got video games, and people read articles to review them, and the left-wing narrative, which turns out to be funded by your taxes by way of this USAID, is that gamers started some harassment campaign against Wu, Sarkeesian, and Quinn for some crazy reason, which also helped propel their careers as social media personalities for a few years. Then they seemed to disappear. It switched over to Black Girl Gamers and the other one. Even Feminist Frequency devolved to a podcast, which is the lowest, laziest form of media, and they turned off comments and likes. But it doesn't matter because nobody's listening to them anymore. So you have these women, the unbangable ones, and some men in dresses, I think, who were cashing in on making stupid video games about how the games they don't play are a problem, and game companies need to make the chicks fat and ugly so they'd look like feminists. And the whole thing was stupid. And Feminist Frequency got $200,000 in USAID government money, as well as Politico getting somewhere from $8 to $34 million in overpriced subscriptions. Looks like money laundering. It was a way of subsidizing them, where the memberships cost $30,000 and like everyone in an office got a membership. It looks like BS is what it was. And they're going to be the tip, and that's going to be the tip of the corruption iceberg. There's going to be more that we'll probably never discover, not even if you burned it all, the system down and searched the ashes, figuratively. Anyway, with video games, you would just say, hey, if you don't like the games, if you don't like TNA or the jiggle physics or the audience pandering, just don't play the games. I mean, it looks like most of these games are not really made for women anyway, especially not these whiny cat women. Women in general don't really play these kind of games. They play kart racing games and fluffy bunny stuff. It's like with kids, the controller doesn't even really have to be plugged in. But the men who bought games wanted honest reviews, and apparently the ladies were sucking off the reporters so they could get good reviews for their games because they're filthy whores, and the girls just don't care about video games. They just wanted to make a buck. This was just a way to make money and grow their social media footprint, and it worked for a while. The 5 burgers gangbang, and to be fair, back in 2014, Zoe Quinn was at least skinny and bangable. I mean, I guess you could bang her now, but you kind of try to keep it on the down low. But Anita Sarkeesian went to Sweden a few years ago to celebrate her 41st birthday, but she wore, it was like a marriage-themed birthday party, and she's obviously single, so she wore a bridal dress. So it's like the wedding she never had. That's so dark. So instead of just meeting a man like 20 years earlier and actually getting married and having kids, I mean, she's probably still fingering herself to images of chubby Sargon of Akkad. So it's kind of hard to explain. But 15 years ago, there was a time when these kind of girls were kind of cooler in their mind. The blue-haired feminist idiot who was writing stupid articles that didn't pay much, but they got a blue check on Twitter, and they were in their 20s and going to industry shows and parties and doing coke and having hotel sex. And back then, people would kill for a blue check mark. It was a big deal. But then they end up where they are now in their 40s and single cat ladies and marrying themselves. But they're still writing articles that nobody reads. Or if you're Alyssa Mercante, you get fired from Kotaku and become a Twitch video game streamer who's suing some guy because she's a filthy whore. And I think he just repeated that she said she used to be, what do you call it, a cam girl? I gotta admit, I've never seen a cam girl before. I'm assuming that is like from the earlier days of the internet when they just, enjoy themselves on camera type of thing. I think I was Smash JT. And so she's suing him for, I don't know, defamation among other things. These people live for their social media footprint. And she actually seems legitimately mentally ill. So I hope she's not listening to this. But at least Zoe Quinn has got Depression Quest and her horrible comic books. One of them was a Blade Runner ripoff. He's really stupid. So anyway, Gamergate kicked off because gamers were noticing the far-left pussy toxicity of games and gamer magazines, which are written by soy boys and Coomer Antifa types. And then these whiny women were bitching and moaning about games that they don't play in the first place. The meme of they come to a situation, they say, open it up to us to be inclusive, and they change it, they destroy it. And then they leave and they go, oh, we didn't care about it in the first place. But the media immediately came out against, I mean, really, like, if you can, you're better off just excluding women from things if you can. Anyway, the media immediately came out against the gamers and in support of these filthy whores. It was entirely one-sided coverage, and that was 10 years ago when these types of online magazines were more important. The Vox, Slate, Salon, Mike, BuzzFeed, now this, HuffPo, IGN, Kotaku, and probably dozens more, and a lot have gone out of business and most have shrunk because the media in general is disappearing as people are refocusing more on smaller, decentralized influencers. But the media response to this feminism in gaming thing was blown way out of proportion. And as it turns out, the government, your taxes in one way or another, was funding these groups in a massive globalist glow-ops money laundering scheme. It answers the questions I always had about these websites is you look at some of them, you go, how are these companies staying in business? Because they're getting subsidized from the government, and they sell government and corporate subscriptions that they keep secret. Where you could subscribe to, say, some website for $30 a year, well, they have a hidden tier for the government, and it's thousands of dollars a year. So you might have some government office where everyone is subscribed, and the government is paying Politico types of magazines millions of dollars a month. So when that money got cut off, suddenly they're in deep trouble. Now, obviously, the bribery was to control a narrative, which, if that seems like a waste of taxpayer money, then yes, obviously. But how do I put this? If we're at this far, if we're this deep into it, the country is in trouble. That is going to be a challenge to dig itself out of. The thing is, the taxation. You look at how extensively you get taxed, and then what they spend it on, and it's for the most ridiculous things. It's like they're just, a lot of it is money laundering, them just stealing from the taxpayers. Where up until 1913. There was no Federal Reserve or federal taxes, but thank God for fractional reserve lending so they could fight a war on the other side of the Atlantic and go into infinite debt and inflation to fight forever wars. The thing is, at one time, Americans would have overthrown their government if they got taxed like this, a little Tea Party kind of thing. But with the slippery slope, they just keep increasing taxes to spend it on the BBC or Politico or give it to foreign countries. One, foreign countries can take care of themselves, and foreign media does not need American tax dollars. You just need to cut taxes. And it's the situation of they get taxes, when you get funding for something, you have to spend all of it, even if you're essentially burning the money, because otherwise the next year you won't get the funding for it. And that's like something that needs to be fixed. The thing is, it's so ingrained that Trump for 4 years is not going to do anything because the whole system is not going to allow itself to be shrunk because they view you as cattle debt slaves and your money is their money. So this USD scandal should kind of be a civil war, overthrow your government level event. And people, unfortunately, just don't care enough. They're not really where they need to be. So Politico was getting paid to write the dumbest articles on earth about video game Nazis and the need to worship the vagina and just be good coomers and consumers and love diversity, all this kind of stuff that gamers hate. And the thing is, this is on the gamers because they should have just stopped playing games and started exercising and reading books. But FOMO, the fear of missing out, is a powerful addiction. And the globalist deep state government knows this. So the games are kind of a control mechanism, the bread and circuses. It's an addiction that people accept as displacement behavior. The gamers could have destroyed the industry simply by not buying games anymore, the consoles, and just let that branch of propaganda die out. And it's the same with movies. If though I will see you're seeing consequences more in films because they're just not doing what they used to do, especially the superhero genre, which I kind of loosely pay attention to across the board, is they're just having too many bombs. And what happens when a genre has bombs or a company has bombs, eventually you associate that with Marvel and DC, and people are just not going to go to the theater anymore. Anyway, like for an example of how evil and corrupt your government is, how malicious and stupid and intentionally evil it is. It's just the always answer is, oh, they're going to exceed your expectations. You just have to start paying attention to Washington. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.